think SEO is the core of everything, and it still is. And that's why I'm still not. And when everyone says that SEO is dead, it's not dead. I think it's still the fundamental core of everything. It's just you have to be able to be holistic, apply it across where it's appropriate.
If you had to give one piece of advice to agencies and publishers navigating SEO and content in 2025, what would it be?
Go niche in one area and produce great topical authority content around it, but also think about one content area as part of your cluster strategy where you can actually do it programmatically. You need to know at least 3 channels to then create an audience growth strategy for your clients.
Welcome to another episode of the Agency Insider Show. I'm your host Navneet Kaushal, and today we have a very special guest, Vahe Arabian, the founder of State of Digital Publishing and SODP Media. He's an expert in digital publishing, SEO, and content monetization. Today we are diving deep into some of the hottest topics in the industry, including programmatic SEO, content monetization strategies, and how audience development is reshaping the way we think about SEO. Vahe, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks, Navneet. How are you? And thanks for inviting me on the podcast. Very great guest so far, and I look forward to contributing.
Yeah, sure. Now, can you take us through the journey, through your journey in digital publishing? How did you get started in this space?
Sure. One of my first SEO roles when I was an intern during university, I did work for a small business marketing agency, but I also worked for a publisher. And when I worked for the publisher, which is now called Finder, I saw the way that they were able to literally capture, like, because they were very smart at those days, focusing much on credit cards. The way that they were going in terms of the content velocity and how they're able to reach the audience and find creative ways to engage the audience really gave me inspiration on trying to find a path to working in publishing. But when I tried to do that after my university studies, the Australian market was very small. So fast track, a couple of years later, like in 2017, there was the first sort of shift in social where the algorithm updates happened. And I saw a lot of publishers going to agencies because they wanted to focus on SEO and other ways of growing the traffic and audience. And for me, during that time, I've been head of SEO and working in multiple agencies, and I saw my time now to go back and specialize in one area rather than focusing on sort of all different industries. So my journey went back through there. I also started SODP, State of Digital Publishing, the publication, and I did a lot of testing and a lot of different initiatives to grow our audience. And so now I run both the publication and the agency.
Okay. Now, what inspired you to create a State of Digital Publishing, and what gaps in the industries were you looking to fill?
Sure. So it's along the lines of, so our mission is to help publishers develop sustainable business models. At that time, I saw the likes of, like, there was that reactionary sort of habit and movement that publishers typically made in terms of, for example, if video was, at that time, the short video version 1 was very hot. So a lot of times what publishers did was literally pivot the entire business onto just publishing short video content, or they would go through and literally just host their content on Facebook and stop publishing on their website. And for me, what I saw for them was the pain point was they just followed what the cheese was and not necessarily think about long-term strategies and how they build their business. So for me, what I saw the gap in the market was there was not, although there was some industry publications and the member bodies, there wasn't a centralized place where they'll talk a lot about audience growth, because a lot of that was pretty much very hidden. And that's why also when I tried to go into that in the Australian market, I didn't know how to do that myself. So I decided that I'll take a stab and I'll try to, as I go along and grow our publication, also share our experience on how to do it, and also sort of try to find the industry case studies. And also, so we pivoted a little bit since then, but because we now see the market more towards providing publishers with tech reviews and being able to show them the platforms and automations they can use, just because of a lot of the changing technology that's happening very quickly, especially with AI. But the nature still stays the same. We see a lot of the areas in terms of providing them that information to help them to sustainably grow their business instead of trying to like pivot into the next hot trend that's happening.
Okay. Now, how has the digital publishing industry evolved since you started, and what are some of the biggest changes you have seen?
Back when I first went into a full time, a lot of it was based on social traffic. A lot the social
Right.
traffic. A lot of audiences relying on Facebook, which is now Meta, and really just trying to grow their likes and followers and using vanity metrics to be able to really sell their audience, like to get revenue to sell their audiences that way. What's then happened is there's been a shift from trying to grow your own audience and then growing traffic to now shifting towards, it's not about traffic, it's about quality conversions, it's about engaged audiences, and really trying to leverage first party data whether and it's a couple of ways. It's trying to really create your own products to then be able to then have a sense of community and being able to monetize from your products so that your traffic isn't a factor when there's changes in algorithms and so forth, or in terms of first party data, really just trying to be able to leverage that data because in ad networks and ad exchanges, a lot of the ways that publishers used to get revenue from programmatic was through demand. And now it's shifted towards the supply side market. So being able to supply your data to those data vendors, and because it's very valuable to them, is where that the market's going. So being able to really share that value and that demographic data to your advertisers, media agencies, to the the supply SSPs is really where you can really grow your revenue.
Okay. And so, all right. Now let's move to our next segment, which is programmatic SEO, of course. So now programmatic SEO, of course, has been, if done right, has been a game changer. Now, can you break down what it is and how it benefit publishers?
Of course. Programmatic SEO is pretty much high quality content that you can scale, so that you can basically you can scale to that to really grow your SEO, your organic search traffic. So where that comes from, generally the content that you can make programmatic, which pretty much is a breakdown of using data, a data set, finding queries and intent that can be used across a particular attribute, whether it's a location, whether it's a demographic. Like for example, we did a baby names project recently with one of our clients, and baby name meaning was it was for them where they were targeting newborn parents, new first time parents, choosing names for them. Using that content was helpful for them. So some kind of attribute database, and then bringing that together to then whether it's through stringing up other data structures or being able to come with conditional queries to be able to then create a template level content is sort of what programmatic SEO is. And so to your question, why is this important for publishers?
Right.
For me, I've had a very last year was quite a challenging year for publishers, and to be honest, as an agency, like who's someone who's also offering SEO for publishers, it was very challenging for us in terms of performance as well. One of the ways that I was able to cut through, because of the challenge that there was a lot of bias towards bigger publishers like Forbes and Reddit and a lot of those competitors, was through programmatic SEO, because it allows you to cost effectively go against those bigger publishing sites where small publishers and media publishers don't have the resources. And secondly, it allows you to grow your clusters and content so that you can develop your topical authority much quicker without needing to focus on link building or publishing a lot of news content. So publishers rely traditionally a lot on news content to then get into Google News, earn links, and then become a news publisher. And then they went into evergreen content. So for many publishers that wanted to start up and grow audience and engage audience more quicker, rather than going to the news path where you might see decaying return on your content, programmatic is more sustainable, and we can actually help them grow in a shorter period of time to then develop that into more products. So, for example, with that publisher example, the baby names data that we have, it can become an app where you can do searches for that, and then you can synchronize the content on your website with your app to then continue to evolve that offering and have return audiences and users. So that's where I see the value of programmatic SEO, particularly for publishers.
Okay, and so now, what are some of the common misconceptions about programmatic SEO, and where do exactly most people go wrong?
I think it's the relative ease of it. Sorry, I mean, I know that sounds a bit basic, but because they think it's easy, oh, I know like what the page should look like, they'll start making shortcuts in terms of the content that they produce, how they produce that content, and how they. So a lot of times, maybe you might try to create that content using ChatGPT or something else like that, and we've seen a lot of cases where sites have just gone from hero to zero, crashed and burnt because of that, unfortunately. So that's definitely one misconception. I think the other misconception is there is some effort towards, although it is easier to produce a lot more content, it's still quite time consuming for me. Like, for example, I was working on publishing 35,000 baby names. You still have to go through, do the fact checking, get someone to do quality assurance for that. I was using ChatGPT and AI to create Google scripts to then help me speed up that process quicker, but I still need to go through and do that proper quality assurance around that. So yeah, the other misconception is as well is that if you publish 35,000, like a lot of names, pages at once, you'll see a quick uplift. It's actually not the case. That you should probably be doing that in tranches, so that you see some reaction in terms of the rankings and progress that you're, whether it's impressions or rankings towards second page, like, and then do the next one. Because what typically happens is, because then it gets indexed and then it becomes part of your site structure, the other pages can then boost the initial pages, and then it becomes more of a snowball effect to then, when you then producing the other batches of pages, you'll see quicker traction from those as a result. So not doing a lot of pages at once, thinking about like what the velocity of that publishing is definitely something that's underestimated.
Okay. And so besides this baby name project which you did, can you share some other successful case studies or examples where programmatic SEO has significantly boosted traffic?
Yeah. There's some basic ones. I have a personal project website where we've literally done what is 1 out of 100 in terms of percentage, and how does that calculate into a GPA grade. Other one, yeah, and so like we had a challenge as well. I had a challenge as well trying to rank for our calculated pages, and we found that was an avenue for us to grow our traffic. I was able to grow our traffic from maybe 1,000 users to 35,000 users in 6 weeks, because after doing that. Or another one is like currency conversions as well. So a lot of, like, if you look at the commonality, it's like there's a commonality in terms of calculations. There's a lot of people that have created tools to then create programmatic pages to be able to create products and traffic and growth quicker from that. Besides attributes, which is baby name.
Okay. And now, with AI generated content becoming mainstream, how do you see it complementing or conflicting with programmatic SEO?
I would not advocate using it for the individual programmatic pages. There's two ways to go about it. There's people that are going to take a risk, and I don't encourage this for anyone. But if you're going to take, if anyone's going to take the risk, then you need to work with a solution that has a heavy blended solution that has created their own formula to help you create structured content and structured data markup. If it's under the structured data markup, then Google might see that as in terms of the YMY, or like lower quality content, but it's acceptable content. Because, like, for example, you see like a lot of news publishers would produce weather recaps or sports recaps. That's data that's being used across the board, but it's nothing unique or general. But maybe you can use it for product descriptions. Like you can use some content for replicable things that don't pretty much impact your EAT. I think that's acceptable, but don't risk it for your higher traffic pages.
Okay. Okay. Now, what tools or tech stacks do you recommend for those looking to scale their SEO with automation or programmatic SEO?
Sure. I think the main thing that you should learn is, to be honest, being able to learn Python or being able to complement your Python a little bit, even if you don't know properly, with ChatGPT and having a developer, is pretty much the core skill that you should be learning in the first place, because it allows you to, because with a lot of these tools require you to debug a lot of the automations that you have, and Python is the core skill that helps complement all these tools. So for me, like being able to use ChatGPT to then create Google scripts and then come up with these ideas on how to do the fact checking and things quicker with API integrations is a very core skill that you should learn. Even though not a lot of people are sufficient in it, that's one. The other things are pretty much using something like Airtable or like a database where you can populate the data outside of Google Sheets, because Google Sheets can become very slow and clunky. Being able to create content templates and being able to replicate that as well. So you can use Surfer, you can use any other sort of because Surfer now has the ability to create templates and save your templates. Any other similar tool like that can help you to replicate that. Even for example, ClickUp, you can use that as well, and then create the automation through that. And then I haven't tested this myself, but AirOps I'm hearing it's becoming pretty popular now, and I'm seeing that a lot on LinkedIn recently. But we still use API to sort of pretty much semi-automate our process to publishing as well.
Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about some audience development, which is now being called as the new holistic SEO. Why is audience development becoming a key factor in SEO success?
Because essentially, and this has happened like probably 3-4 years ago, but if you don't know how to let me just say this in a way that is clear. So agencies at the moment, it's not, first of all, we've shifted from keywords to topics. That's why a lot of people are focusing on clusters. At the same time as well, the way that we're shifting in terms of the role of different channels, it's become a lot more fragmented. So for many SEOs and digital marketing publishing professionals, the way that they can actually make an impact, whether it's traffic and conversions, is by directly engaging and understanding audience needs. So really understanding trends, really understanding your content clusters, a lot of these aspects isn't technical is still a very key aspect to that. So you can understand how your content distribution takes into effect. Like for example, you see a lot of people in SEOs talk about LLM optimization or how they need to do that, but it all comes under the audience development umbrella, because, for example, for those other components that have changed, but also for example, like if you have a strong email list, then that can also influence your Google Discover traffic, and that increases your content discoverability. So a lot of these channels play into each other, and having a holistic understanding of how your audience navigates through a fragmented traffic or user sequence is key, and that's why we see audience development as the umbrella to be able to manage this holistically.
Okay. And so how do you balance traditional SEO tactics with a more holistic audience first approach? So is there a different way you do it, or it just start with the keyword research?
No, I think a lot of it, I think it's the framework or the mindset that you have towards it. There's a lot of the traditional things, like you said, keyword research, that's still applicable. It's just more about how you mapping the intent of your keyword research or topic research, and basically understanding where the role of that is with the other channels and how to sort of use technology like automations to be able to make that distribution easier. So for example, being able to use AI to like reformat video content into short form videos, which we're now seeing in Google search results, a dedicated short video tab can provide you some other referral traffic opportunities, or understanding like if there's social content that's working well on, because there's a Google trend that can help you to rank in Google News. And probably you should also think about other platforms like Flipboard or Apple News. So I think SEO is the core of everything, and it still is. And that's why I'm still not. And when everyone says that SEO is dead, it's not dead. I think it's still the fundamental core of everything. It's just you have to be able to be holistic or applied across where it's appropriate.
Okay. And what role do content communities, newsletter, and social engagements play in SEO today?
Sorry, content communities and social engagement. Sorry.
What role do content communities or newsletters or social engagements play in SEO today? Do they have a role in SEOs today with the keeping in audience minds or no?
Yeah, absolutely they do. And I think it's definitely, even if you start off with organic search, you need to eventually continue to grow by owning your audience. Because so with social and email, it helps trigger discoverability even on search. So if your audience doesn't, from not I'm assuming here, but for example, some of the factors for being able to be triggered on Discover is users' history, users' preferences of the content that they searched on mobile device on Google. And what dictates that a lot is from content that comes from your newsletter or social. But I'm seeing that a lot more from newsletters as well, because that's more of a direct channel. It's more attributable. So a lot of that, I think, does play into the content, which a lot of it's becoming more coming from Discover than organic search, because of the decline of click-through rate. It's becoming a lot more important as a result.
Right. Right. Okay. Now, so should publishers shift focus from ranking for keywords to building engaging reader bases? And if so, how should they go about doing it?
Yeah. No, it's, if they haven't done already, then it's a concern, and basically it starts off by planning your topic with your news clusters and then also your evergreen clusters. So when it comes to your news clusters, think about like a tree and on all the branches from your tree. So when there's like a news event that's happening, what are all the different aspects that you can publish about that? So maybe let's say, sorry, because I've got a team as well from Pune as well, but we're talking about the ICC championships, for example, and let's just say a lot of them are talking about Virat Kohli, talking about that as a news. Then people can, the aspects of that is maybe his post conference interview, talking, and then there's an angle about that. People talking about his statistics. People talking about, is he going to be continuing to play given that he's aging, for example, he's already past his prime a little bit. Those type of things are a lot of aspects that you need to plan for or be reactive to when you're covering your news, and also thinking about how you need to deliver that. Is that going to be through a live feed? Is that going to be just through a series of posts? From an evergreen point of view, it's a lot more deeper than that. So category pillar versus content pillar, and then and sort of going very in depth in terms of your research and planning a lot of the content. Like we bucket the content based on informational, uh, informational, promotional, tactical. So we try to like break down a lot of the information, like the what is type of content. Like for example, um, where was, for example, Virat Kohli born, for example, to sort of who are the best IPO, so ICC championship players of all time, to conversion triple type of content where it might be the something about his net worth, and leads to people subscribing for more news about Virat Kohli, for example. Um, so yeah, trying to plan that is key. And so to your question about how should publishers go about shifting their mindset from keywords to that. It's trying to it's really trying to look at that, but then also just looking at the content formats that they need to appropriate that to as well. So if when you search that content and then you know that it's getting picked up on overviews, it's getting picked up on video, it's getting picked up on different formats, how do you then grab that content and then reappropriate that to make that as easy as possible to be linking back to that central piece?
Right. And if a publisher or a brand is just starting out, what's the number one thing they should prioritize in audience development?
Yep. In audience, sorry. Just to be more specific around that, do you want me to say a tactic or a channel? How would you?
Both. So because it's just a publisher who's starting out, so which tactic and which channel should they pick?
I think it's a combination of organic search and email. Because the core of understanding your audience is being able to know where they are searching, what topics they're searching for, how the content, where they're discovering that content. So understanding that, and even combining like TikTok keyword research, normal search using keyword planner or Ahrefs, that's important. But also, when you're creating a newsletter as well, you're going towards really trying to create quality content and developing a newsletter as well. So learning a bit about email marketing can go a long way to then eventually monetize your newsletter and your audience.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the future of digital publishing and SEO. Now, what are some of the emerging trends in digital publishing that agencies and brands should be paying attention to?
Yeah. The main meta trend is that the role of search is changing. And I strongly believe that it's becoming brand-led conversions. So what that means is that how traditional marketing, we talk about the consideration phase where when they're searching for something, they'll search for a brand or compare different brands of shoes, for example. I see that happening a lot with terms of content. So you see, for example, a lot of times like Vogue magazine, they might have like Vogue magazine beauty trends or Vogue. So there's an audience that is in the user funnel really loyal to them and consuming and searching for that content to do that. So what the audience and what marketers should be doing is thinking about what steps do they need to take to actually generate more brand searches, but to then help make their search traffic a lot more meaningful than pretty much trying to focus a lot more on top funnel traffic. I think that's the main tactic that I would advise to do that. So pretty much just a couple of things you need to look at just briefly to be able to do that. First step is obviously the topics that matter to help create that conversion is going to be important. So for example, and it comes back to what products you need to create to meet your audience needs as well. So it's not content as a information consumption, but as a product. So maybe for Vogue, it's like the beauty awards might be one thing. So then you can go backwards from there and then figure out, okay, what kind of content is then going to lead people to then keep coming back and consuming that. So it might be like a top product category award for fashion brands or something. So then you can create the listicles and everything else and work backwards to plan your clusters that way.
Okay. And so, of course, we spoke about AI generated content. Now, with AI generated content growing, how should publishers position themselves to stay competitive?
I think the key thing is niche. So the niche, particularly in B2B as well, there's a lot of resilience there, and people are willing to still pay for content if they know that it's very thoughtful, it's very expert-driven content. Because if you then because there's been a lot of flack as well last year. For example, CNET, there's a few of those publishers that try to blend in those results within their content, but then they got a lot of flack from their audience and community members due to the inaccuracies, due to the quality of it was how it was. So I'd say that, and you sorry, the other thing as well is that you see a lot of journalists that have left bigger publishing companies like the New York Times. They've gone and created their own Substack newsletters, creating six-figure businesses because they have created a niche and loyal audience. So I think just stick to your guns and really focus on think about the product and what you want to create. What's the value you're going to give to the audience? And then those two things will come together because everyone would support you for that. I think there's a lot of resilience at the moment.
Okay. And so how do you see Google search landscape evolving in the next few years with the AI and everything in fact, in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So I sort of spoke about this a little bit earlier. I think the role of search is changing. It's going to become more brand conversion led. There will be a lot more discovery from, I mean, Google's trying to, it's doing similar tactics like Facebook did in terms of like trying to like eat all of what other competitors are doing. So they're going to, although they've released now globally AI overviews, they're going to create an AI mode tab where people can just start the discovery there, and then they're going to push people towards universal results. But I think in general, really focusing on brand building, PR, a lot of the other things that I talked about from a content strategy point of view, that's where the fundamental shift is going to change. And and um, and I think the other thing as well is that a lot of us are trying to think too ahead, but we still need to figure out what's happening. So we need to give some time to react. Like that's why I've been very on LinkedIn. I haven't really talked about predictions as much, but I know this is as a fact because we're seeing a lot of the interactions and how people. We also see it from the data from Reddit as well. Like if you see a lot of the ranking data that comes from Reddit, everyone's searching for a topic plus Reddit. So we know that at least that signal is there that people are very brand loyal because they know that there's a subject around on Reddit that they can pick up and get the results for. Um, we need to just keep speaking in terms of where the search industry is going on based on data, not based on predictions, because there's a lot of predictions that are going on and a lot of it's negative. And I don't want to be part of that conversation and being negative. We just have to adapt as things come along.
Okay. Now, what skills will be essential for digital marketers and publishers moving forward?
It depends what role you're going to take. I think so. If you're more in audience growth and product development, there's the T-shape is still important, but there needs to be a lot more of a deep skill set in your technical abilities. Understand using Python, knowing how to interact with and using APIs, and doing a lot of the prompts and communication between that. You don't have to be a very good coder, but it allows you to quickly, match insights, get summaries of insights. It helps you with your productivity, basically. That's a key aspect. I think the other aspect is knowing at least 3 channels and really trying to master it. You don't have to know more. Is it that at the moment, my perspective, because I was focusing on just SEO for 15 years. Now I've broadened out my skill set. You need to know at least 3 channels to then create an audience growth strategy for your clients. And then really becoming becoming very good enough in that so that you can work between each. When something doesn't work in one area, you can move on to another area and then at least continue to provide value for clients instead of having the conversation with clients and saying, oh, SEO is going to take 12 months. And with publishing, if you don't have the velocity and if you don't have the volume, you're never going to get anywhere in 12 months. Even and publishers are very budget constrained as well. So you've got to be very much on your toes to be able to do a lot of things to help get some traction.
So we talked about velocity. Does the content velocity also comes into the picture? Let's say I'm a new publisher. Does the speed of how much content I'm publishing on a daily or weekly basis, is that a factor or doesn't matter?
No, it absolutely is a critical factor, and particularly for news as well is a factor because velocity is a kind of signal that tells Google, like, if you're covering this story more, then you might be considered as an authority or someone who very well understands a topic in the space. And so we see a lot of times that the high velocity of content is why a lot of, even though they might be covering 20 articles and maybe 4 of them are ranking better, but only one of yours is ranking better in top stories, it's because of the velocity and how they're sort of helping each other to benefit from that. Velocity in the longer run also is just because it will help you increase your crawl rate and give you more bandwidth to allow you to rank more content and different kind of content easier over time as you develop your authority.
Okay. Now, So does link matters when it comes to the publishers, or it just natural links? I mean, does one needs to go about acquiring links, or it doesn't matter that much?
If they've started from publishing news and they started to surface in top stories in Google News, no, because the fundamental way of how the web works is,
Right.
they've traditionally gone to news sites because they've been the source of the news. A lot of people just naturally link to them.
Right.
So that kind of news publisher, no. If you're more of a content publisher or a magazine publisher, um, it does become someone more you have to look at it more tactically. So that's where combination of PR and sort of tactical link building matters to help allow your categories to rank. So
Okay. Now, if you, if you had to give one piece of advice to agencies and publishers navigating SEO and content in
yeah,
2025, what would it be?
the one piece of advice is go niche in one area and produce very great topic authority content around it, but also think about one content area as part of your cluster strategy where you can actually do it programmatically. Because in this age where there's a lot more competition, it's harder to grow. You need to have a combination of both so that you can not put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay.
So programmatic, I'm seeing a lot of more returns and wins because we've done a blended approach.
Okay. Now, okay. And for the skills, does it means that the marketer should know a little bit about programmatic SEO, Python, or it's easy to do with the no code?
For someone like ourselves, like someone who's going to do that for publishers,
Right.
you can do either, but you'll have more friction if you're just trying to do low code. From what I've experienced, our team because we've done a lot of, we also continue to update our own processes internally. We keep going back to using scripts to improve our automations because it's a much more lightweight. It's a lot more lean out for us to run things. One thing that you could potentially consider doing is using AI agents and not automations like Zapier because there's a lot more steps and it's I think maybe becoming a bit more redundant. But maybe the AI agents is the next phase of automations basically. But we'll look into exploring that a bit more in the next upcoming months.
Okay. Okay. So, so when it comes to programmatic SEO, do you execute these type of work almost every week?
It's more when you say sorry, it's we do it day in day out, but it's really much a lot of it's coming from the prep work. It's
Yeah,
because
that's what I was. So, for
yeah.
example, you gave an idea of baby names. So how do you? So, for example, let's say I know we need to do programmatic SEO. How do I come up with an idea of what exactly I need to do programmatic SEO for? For example, baby names is just one. So, is there a methodology you use where you have to come out? Okay, this is what we can do programmatic SEO for.
Yeah, it will come from your keyword research, and when you look at other competitor sites as well, and you see how a lot where they get a lot of their traffic from, then you can reverse engineer that and then think about how do I break down the sections that they have created to then create like a format in the spreadsheet or in Airtable to then populate that data and then be able to push that into your CMS on a scalable way. So you then have to think about what data points you need to collect, how you need to optimize it on page, how to have that all of those conditions in Airtable or your spreadsheet so that when you pass it over to a developer, they can just easily upload it. So yeah, there's some hand holding there, and then there's also you need to think about how to also improve like the quality of the content as well. So you might also have to think about, for example, on the baby names in the meaning pages as well. You have to come up. We have a sections there like what are similar names that you need to. What are similar names to this name that you can consider? That comes from like thinking about conditions and logics that maybe it's not there in the keyword research. So like syllables or like this first syllable and then using that as a condition. So you got to do a lot of this planning, wireframing, um, and then being able to brief that to the client or the developer so that they can see if they can do it and manage that implementation. There's a lot of like collaboration involved.
Now, when you push these pages, usually on an average, do you two questions? So, how many content you are pushing at one go, and how many content you are producing, and are you pushing them at one go all together?
No, it's talking if you I mentioned
Programmatic.
yeah. When I mentioned a bit earlier, one of the he said what was one of the things that was a underestimation. I mentioned the fact that we do things in batches, so that
Okay.
it gives it time to develop the equity. So that makes it easier for the initial pages to rank and future pages to rank. So yeah, and but to the first part of your question, it's all relative. So you have to look at the size of, like, for example, for the baby names, we know that there was 35,000 pages that was done in the maximum, because the data that we had from the USA government website on the top baby names, they published that many number of names. So for us to create good quality content, or good quality of content that is able to be ranked, we need to focus on that. Make sure that we have the popular names ranking, but work on a plan to then get the other names going once those are published. So you have to also look at the size of the opportunity and then break it down backwards that way. For example, on the GPA calculator site that we have, we've got we're collecting data around college admissions and outlining, like, what's the required score that you need to have, what's the admission process and so forth. There's, dozens, and sorry, like, how much? It's probably like 30, 40,000. So there's not 34. I keep going to that number, but there's a lot more than 35,000 colleges in USA alone, just to be able to collect that data. So it all depends on
Okay.
the opportunity and what data you can access.
Okay. All right. And I'm sure it also matters if your domain or a site is new or old, because you can't just push too much content if you're just starting out, right?
Exactly. But also you have to look at also the competitiveness as well. So some of them will be easier to push out. Like, for example, um, pushing out a results page of, like, what's the percentage of 1 out of 10, and creating a results page for that. It doesn't have much high competition, and if you publish a lot of those at once, it might be easier to rank than a baby names, which is more competitive. So you have to look
Yeah.
at it relative to the competition.
Okay. All right. This has been an incredible, insightful conversation. And before we wrap up, where can our listeners find you online? And do you have any exciting projects coming up that we should keep an eye on?
Absolutely. If you want to get in touch with me directly, feel free to visit my LinkedIn profile, Vahe Arabian, or you can also visit our website, stateofdigitalpublishing.com. You can see a lot of our content that we're publishing for the industry there. And in terms of exciting projects that we're coming out on, we are relaunching our top tools section that we are literally done extensive reviews and ratings for each of the software platforms. And it's also, for us, it's one of our top driving traffic pages, but we're trying to actually create that as a product, and something that our industry can use as third-party validation. So we've taken like already 3 or 4 months to that, and I'm looking forward to launching that in the next month or so. It's taking us time to just validate a lot of the platforms. So
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Vahe, for sharing your wisdom with us today. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Agency Insider podcast and leave us a review. Until next time, keep innovating and growing your digital presence. Thank you.